Hey y'all, it's Michael, and today I'm here to talk about Blood at the Root, A Racial Cleansing in America by Patrick Phillips. I wanted to read this book, first off, because I saw it floating around BookTube. Initially, what intrigued me about it was that it's set in Georgia. This is a non-fiction account of a town in Forsyth County in Georgia, particularly Cummings. First off, I thought Forsyth County was like this where it takes place. I thought it was like up near Macon, which I was like, oh my god, did I ever like accidentally pass by it or was there at one point in my life? And I was like, oh, but then someone told me in a message and was like, oh no, I made the same mistake too. It's actually north of Atlanta. And I was like, oh, then I've never been there. And thank God. There's still places in Georgia that and there's a lot of places here in the South still, like even when we go down to the beach, that you could feel this uneasiness that you're not welcome just because of the color of your skin, and it still happens. Like you feel unwelcome, but at the most you feel really unsafe. Like you don't feel like we need to get this gas and let's just go. I don't read a lot about Georgia history, like nonfiction novel wise, and so I was like, oh my god, this is like really close to where I live. Well, really close in the world aspect. This is about a old threadbare lie. Y'all ever heard about that? An old threadbare lie is the lie of a white woman accusing a black man of assaulting her or raping her, and unfortunately in the end the black man always it ends unfortunately. Phillips is actually from the town and he wanted to write about the history of the county. Basically this county has been all white for years, and that's essentially what the blurb tells you. And this is where I kind of struggle with this, because since it is a history nonfiction, I feel as though if I were to give accidentally like a spoiler, I guess in the normal sense of a novel, that it would spoil the story. Because the way that the story unfolds, I went into this really blindly. I just knew the basis, and it is surprising essentially what happens and how the trial goes. He does a really great job of telling you the story, the way that this trial essentially ends up, and how this trial is really important to the cleansing of this town and how this mob mentality, because the city, the town, I keep saying town, but the town essentially had a lot of like bigotry, racism, and like a lot of KKK members like grew up in that town, like known KKK members. Phillips also provides pictures. I think that was really great. He actually provides pictures of like the town and then the real people involved. I am gonna let you guys know that some of the photos are really, actually a lot of the photos are really graphic, because there are unfortunately pictures of lynching, like really bad things happening to people. It's great that Phillips introduces to us to all of these people and who all of these people are involved. Kind of wanted more information from some of these people, and I know that's me being really greedy, because like when you are doing these historic non-fiction, sometimes you don't have the luxury of knowing all of the actual happenings with all of the people. Since he's taken us through how this town essentially becomes all white, towards as we get closer to like more current times, he doesn't focus on it as much as like the essential part of the trial and like the around the early 1900s. Because the trial takes place in the 1912. He focuses mainly on that time period. He really does glance over like the late like the 2000s and like the 1990s. I wish he would expanded it more. Overall, I really enjoyed this. The narrative, the writing style is more of like a narrative, like almost like a fiction, but it happened in real life. It was really interesting and like surprising where he decides to focus some of the people important during later on, because if you know what happens later on in the South with, I don't think it's a spoiler, but it's obvious that the civil rights movement is gonna happen, and I really enjoyed that part because it was really surprising. We obviously know more about in the mainstream, like what they teach you in like school, like more about Selma and like Birmingham, Little Rock, like the Little Rock incident. Like we know more about them, and it was really exciting for me anyways, like being a Georgia citizen, knowing this part of this town history, like this part of the state that I did not, like I really didn't know a lot about. It was really great seeing these historic civil rights leader a real impact to this town. I keep saying town, but yeah, to this town. I did wish that he talked more about himself. At one spectrum, it's like he wanted to talk about the town itself and not more of him, but I would have gotten more of a connection with Phillips. He briefly touches on it, but I wanted more, basically like the black sheep of the town in the perspective of how they view diversity. And I kind of wish he talked more about that, like his day-to-day life, like more about himself. But I can see why he didn't do it, because as an author like this, you're walking that tightrope of should I, shouldn't I, because it is what started essentially this this book. But it's kind of like I see it, but I do wish personally for me that he did talk more about his day-to-day life living in that environment. I learned a lot, and I definitely think that you should give this one a shot. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I really liked it. If you read this book, let me know what you think about it. Until then, I'll see you guys tomorrow for another VEDA video. Bye!